Today we will talk about the New Brunswick Express Entry stream. This is a really good stream and an easy path to Canadian PR for both professionals, for students who are inside Canada, and there are many options available if you have a 1 year of full-time work experience in any of the skilled occupations, tier 0, 1, 2, or 3. I know it's a little bit complicated, but I will make it easy for you. And I hope you will like this video and do subscribe to the channel because I've created many such videos and that might be valuable if you are looking for immigrating to Canada, right? So my name is Dhil Sandhu and I'm a CICC licensed immigration consultant based out of Ontario, Canada. And without any further ado, let's dive right into today's presentation. So let's look at the New Brunswick Express Entry string. So let's look at the eligibility first. You need to have a valid Express Entry profile. So when you have a valid Express Entry profile, you must have met one of the federal immigration program requirements, which could be a federal skilled worker program, Canadian experience class, or federal skilled trades program. You need to have minimum 1 year of continuous full-time work experience or an eco part-time in one of the occupations in tier 0, 1, 2, or 3 in the past 10 years. You need to have a language level of CLB 7, either in English or French. For example, if you look at the IELTS requirements, so that would come to 6 in each of the modules. That is a minimum requirement. Then you need to have settlement funds, which is your LICO. There are some exceptions to this, which we can discuss later. And then you would have met one of the requirements, which is related to the connection. You could have at least one of the connections with the New Brunswick. So those connections could be either New Brunswick employment connection, New Brunswick student connection, or occupations in demand connection. So we'll discuss that in detail. So now let's look at the process. The process is quite simple. The way it works is first you create a Federal Express Entry profile. And if you have the connection and if you meet the eligibility requirements for the New Brunswick Express Entry stream, then you create an expression of interest. After you created an expression of interest, you wait for the invitation. If you get the invitation to apply, then you submit your application within 45 days to New Brunswick PNP. If you are nominated, then what will happen is that you have to accept the invitation in your Federal Express Entry account within 30 days, right? And if after accepting your invitation, you will get 600 points in your profile. And what will happen next is whenever the next draw for Express Entry will come, which could be a PNP draw or a general draw, then you will get invited and the rest is history. So then you will follow the normal Express Entry application process, right? So this is how you will get your permanent residence. So let's look at the New Brunswick employment connection. So as the name suggests, what you need to have is either you should be currently working in New Brunswick or have received a job offer from a New Brunswick employer. So again, the step is Express Entry profile, and then you create an expression of interest, and you have to say yes to this question, which says, are you currently working in New Brunswick, or do you have an arranged offer of full-time employment from a New Brunswick company that has been operating in New Brunswick for at least 12 consecutive months? And if you say yes, then you would be eligible for the employment connection. So what do you mean by arranged offer of full-time employment? This means either an LMIA based or an employer specific LMA exempt, right? And let's say you have created your expression of interest successfully, then you send an email at the email which is showing it here, which is entree.express.entry@gnb.ca with the subject line employment in New Brunswick EEOI. And you will add in your message things like your profile number, your full name, your Federal Express Entry profile number, job seeker validation code, and your name of the employer and position. So that's the minimum you need to do in this specific case. Now let's look at the New Brunswick student connection. So as the name suggests, you need to have studied from New Brunswick in a DLI located in New Brunswick in a program which is eligible for postgraduate work permit. And plus there are other criteria. Have completed your study in the past 6 months, and you are currently living in the province and are actively seeking employment in the province, right? So one thing we need to very careful about this. For example, let's say you want to apply after completing your education in the 7th month. So you would not be eligible for the student connection. So it has to be within 6 months, right? You need to submit your application. So again, the steps are pretty much same. So you have a valid express entry profile. And if you meet the condition in this case, you create an expression of interest. And when you send your email, you add the things which are mentioned here, like your express entry profile number, your job seeker validation code, your New Brunswick profile number, your proof of graduation, your proof of residence in New Brunswick. So that's all you need to do in this specific case. Then you have occupations in demand. So occupations in demand is slightly different. So the way it works is New Brunswick basically decides which occupations are in demand. Maybe let's say they want nurses. In this case, what they will do is they will send a letter of interest first. So you will not be able to create your expression of interest automatically. So they will send you a letter of interest. And they will also see whether you have any connections in the province, such as family members, previous work or study, right? And then what you do is when you receive a letter of interest from New Brunswick, then you create an expression of interest, and that you have to do within 45 days of receiving the LOI. After submitting your expression of interest, you will send them the email, which is a common process to New Brunswick PNP, and with your message, including the information such as your profile number, your full name, a copy of the letter of interest you received to your Federal Express Entry account and your Federal Express Entry number and job seekers validation code. So now let's look at the criteria, 6 selection factors. If you have understood that there are 2 things which are majorly required for New Brunswick Express Entry stream. One thing is that you need to have one of the connections. And the second thing is that you need to have a score of 67 or above out of 100 on these 6 selection factors together. So what are these selection factors? The first one is age. So the maximum points you can get is 12. Then you have official languages. The maximum points is 28 points. Education, maximum is 25 points. Then work experience, maximum is 15 points. And then there are points for the employment in New Brunswick. So maximum are 10 points. And then you have 10 points maximum for the adaptability factors. So let's look at the age. First is that you must be between 22 to 55 years of age in order to qualify for this program. And if you see the maximum points you get is if your age is between 22 and 35, so you get 12 points. And subsequently, as you grow older, your points reduces. Then you look at the official languages. So the maximum point you can get is 28, right? So let's say your official language is English and you have CLB 7 in all of the abilities. In that case, you will get 16 points. Let's say you are CLB 9 or above in all of the abilities, then your maximum point is 24. And if you're CLB 5 in a second language such as French, then your points are 4 more, right? So the maximum you can earn in this is 28 points. So one of the very interesting thing in this case is that unlike many other PNPs where your IELTS score should be valid at the time of application, in case of New Brunswick, your test result should not be more than 18 months old at the time of application. So this is something very different from other PNPs. Then comes the education. In education, the minimum requirements is secondary high school. So in that case, you will get 5 points. And if you have done a 2-year diploma, you will get 19 points. And if you have a PhD program, then you get 25 points. And you will need an ECA if your education is outside Canada. Then very interesting part is related to work experience. So the maximum points you can earn is 15 points, as it's mentioned that your work experience must be paid work. Employment that is part of unpaid internship or volunteer experience do not count towards work experience. And the other interesting thing is that you must accumulate at least 1 year of continuous work experience, right? Which is 30 hours per week and 1,560 hours total within the last 10 years. So it can be from Canada or abroad, right? So if you have 1 year work experience, you get 9 points. And if you have 6 or more, you get 15 points. That's the maximum you get. Then you have points for employment in New Brunswick. This is again something a little bit of complication where people may not understand. For example, let's say if you have an open work permit, let's say postgraduate work permit, or your wife is working there on an open work permit, then if you're working with a New Brunswick employer, you will not get any specific points under this category, right? So you will get points under 2 situations. The first situation is IRCC issued your work permit based on a positive LMIA, and you've been working for the New Brunswick employer named on your work permit, and your work permit is valid when you apply. And second situation is a LMA exempt work permit. And they say that you are currently working in New Brunswick in a job that is exempt from LMIA requirement due to an international agreement, significant benefits to Canadian interest, or a federal provincial agreement. And then there are other criteria. You are working for New Brunswick employer on your work permit. Your work permit is valid when you apply, and you must have been working for the New Brunswick employer for at least 1 year with continuous full-time or part-time equivalent work. So you would have already worked for at least 1 year in order to claim this 10 points. So this is called LMA exempt work permit, or you can have the other one is a LMA based work permit. Only those cases you will get 10 points. Then you have scores for the adaptability factors. The maximum you can get is 10 points. Let's say you are the single only principal applicant. In that case, if you've worked for at least 1 year full-time in New Brunswick in a tier 0, 1, 2, 3 knock-out job and have a valid work permit, you will get 10 points. If you have previously studied in a 2-year program in New Brunswick at a secondary or post-secondary level, in New Brunswick, you get 5 points. If you have arranged employment, you earn points for having arranged employment as indicated in the section above. So you get 5 points. If you or your spouse have a relative who is 18 years of age or older living in New Brunswick as a citizen or a permanent resident for at least 12 months prior to submitting your application, you will get 5 points. So those relatives could be anyone. It could be parent, grandparent, child, grandchild, sibling, uncle, aunt, niece, or nephew. And you can also get points for your spouse or common law partner if you're married. So the language points are 5 if your spouse has a CLB level 4 or higher in all abilities. Work experience points are 5 if your spouse or partner have at least 1 year of full-time work experience in New Brunswick with a valid work permit or while authorized to work in Canada. Previous studies, you can get 5 points if your spouse or common law partner completed at least 2 academic years of full-time study at a secondary or a post-secondary school in New Brunswick, right? So those are the ways in which you get these adaptability points, right? Then you have proof of funds. For proof of funds, you can get official letters from any banks or financial institutions where you're keeping money, and they're looking for your last 6 months account statements and the average balance for the last 6 months. There are certain situations in which you do not need to demonstrate proof of funds. For example, if you're authorized to work in Canada and you have a valid job offer that meets certain specific criteria, or another area is that if you have been working in Canada on a work permit for at least 1 year and you qualify under the Canadian experience class, in that case as well, you may not have to show proof of funds. So those are, I would say, the two scenarios where that could happen. So if you need any help, my information is you can contact me on my mobile or WhatsApp at 437-848-7200. You can book an appointment by going to my website, which is www.dilimmigration.com. You can also hop onto my YouTube channel where I've created many videos on immigration matters that would be really useful to you. I hope you will subscribe to my channel and maybe share with the other people who might find value in this. My YouTube handle is at Dil Sandhu Talks. And so thank you so much. And I think just go for this program. And this is a great option if you are looking to immigrate to Canada.